brings the vision, the strategy, the plan. JJ's resilience forged in the sand. Together they rise to sharpen the mind, teaching the hustle, the leader's grind. Leadership Live, where the truth unfolds, strengthen the stories, the wisdom they hold. From the grind to the grit, where leaders survive. It's Chris and JJ on Leadership Live.
Welcome to Leadership Live with Chris and JJ, the show where we break down actionable leadership principles you can apply in real time. I'm JJ Hardy, Army veteran and leadership and resilience coach. And I'm joined by my co-host, Chris Pinkowski, a former leadership coach who now leads at the corporate level. Together, we bring different perspectives to the same mission, helping you lead better under pressure, communicate with purpose, and grow where it matters. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of Leadership Live, and I'm here with Chris. How you doing, Chris?
Doing good, JJ. How you doing?
Man, I've been better, but the show must go on. Our health will catch up on us at the most inconvenient times, but I'm here and I'm excited because today we're going to talk about the art of constructive feedback.
Yes.
And this is great because we just did a series on, how to deal with people and what's more important when it comes to dealing with people than receiving their feedback, especially as leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just the way that we solicit feedback from the people that we're leading and the way that we're being open-minded about it, but it's also in the way that we're providing it as well. There are good ways to do it and there are not so good ways to do it. So we're going to unpack that today. And, I think people are going to get a lot of value out of this episode.
I couldn't agree more. And it's a great segue because the last time we got on here, I believe we were talking about difficult conversations.
Yes.
And, what's more difficult than having to, good, bad, right, or wrong, provide feedback to another person? And it's the most valuable thing you can do because what scares people about doing it is that it's, usually an uncomfortable thing. But giving the feedback will actually only better the relationship, and it's going to make that person or those people better, including you, because you're doing something uncomfortable. You got to lean into that.
That's right. Yeah, it is difficult because people, I think when someone hears the word feedback, in my experience, they jump to the negative. Like, this guy's going to give me feedback on how to be better at something, which means that I probably screwed up on something. So I don't know if I want to hear it, but I have to sit here and listen to it.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes it closes people's mind to what's being said.
Yeah.
So there are definitely ways to deliver that can allow someone to be more open-minded. And it's not necessarily about what you've done wrong, as opposed to, hey, this happened, let's address this. But going forward, let's think about how we can do things in a different way to avoid this from happening. That's actually something that's called feed forward. And it's a practice that I've been using for years now. It comes from a gentleman named Marshall Goldsmith, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. He was like the godfather of leadership and executive coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So he comes up with this practice or theory of feed forward, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Hey, this happened, and instead of harping on it and like, we're going to go deep on why this happened and what caused it. Not to say you don't want to get to the root cause of something, right? You always want to get to the root cause of whatever the issue or the challenge was. But if you're looking at it in a pie chart, 25% of the conversation is what happened, why, how did it happen? The other 75% of that pie is talking about how to do better going forward. So when you're coaching people, you're coaching the folks that work for you as a leader, you really want to focus on that 75% of, in the future, this is how we're going to do things. And there are ways that you can help others to give you feed forward so that they're focused on helping you with the positive next steps and end results as well.
Yeah.
So it really took a while for me to get my vocabulary to change, to start saying feed forward instead of feedback. And when you start saying that to people, hey, can I give you a little feed forward on that? First, they're going to look at you like you have 12 heads, because most people have never heard that term before.
Right.
And then when you explain, hey, look, I just want to talk about what happened, but more than anything, I want to talk about how we move forward in the future. Now their guard goes down, they're open-minded, and you get to have a conversation. It's a very valuable, I talk about jujitsu when we're on our podcast sometimes, and it's a way to flank somebody. It's a way to just get to the same result in a different way, but ultimately it helps that person win.
And that you have to have that in mind when you're giving feedback. If you're just complaining,
yeah,
they're going to sniff that out. You got to have the intent to help people win, not just tell them what they're doing wrong all the time. And, people are going to be, as you said, skeptical of it anyway, because they've probably worked other places where they get nothing but negative feedback. And so the only way that you earn the right to give them that feedback, obviously you have to do it no matter what, as a manager, director, whatever, but to make it constructive feed forward, I'll use that term since you just got done saying it. You have to build those relationships at work and let them know that you do have their best interest in mind. That's the first thing. And once they know that you're not out there just to hit them over a head with a hammer every day, then they're not gonna worry when it comes time for feedback. They'll accept it. It'll be a constructive conversation, and as long as they know that you're trying to make yourself and everyone else better on the team, because leaders make the whole team better. They don't just make themselves or select people better. They make the whole team better. As long as they know that you have that in mind, the feedback is not going to be that difficult. The feed forward will not be that difficult.
100%. And I bet you anybody who's watching this or listening to this, who's been in the workforce for more than 5 years, has had the experience where someone in a supervisory or a management position calls out what was done wrong, but they don't take the next step to say, and now here's how you correct it. Here's how you do it better. That's also why there's such a negative connotation around feedback, because people are used to just having it crammed down their throat, what they did wrong. And then there's no connection of, all right, now how do I get better? So this approach is really, and it comes from servant leadership, right? When you're a servant leader, you want people to get better. That is your MO. And this is just a great approach of helping someone uncover a challenge. But even when a leader is asking for feed forward from the people that work for them, even peers, or even, upstream leaders, the way that Marshall Goldsmith teaches this, and the way that I've taught it to not only my coaching clients, but even people that I work with now, is here are the ground rules. I'm going to say, I want to get better at X. I've noticed that I need to get better at X. Can you give me one suggestion that will help me get better? And the only answer I'm allowed to give is thank you. I can't debate you. I'm not going to, walk around in circles about, I don't know if that's a great idea. When you lay those ground rules, my only answer is thank you. And then it's up to me to figure out how to unpack it and take everybody's suggestions, put it into something that's actionable. But that also takes people's guards down, because when you're a leader, I think most people are not used to someone in a leadership position coming to them, who they lead, and saying, "Hey, Joe Snuffy," right? Joe is a common character on this show for anybody who doesn't know. Joe Snuffy, common character, and he's in different roles, from like digging trenches all the way up to like mid-level manager, depending on the conversation.
Oh yeah,
Um,
good old Joe.
yeah, but if you're an executive and you go to Joe, who's maybe a frontline manager, and say, "Joe, I'm trying to get better at understanding how the process flows across the production line, and I need to like roll up my sleeves. What's one suggestion where I can learn and get better in this?" The first time you do that, Joe Snuffy's going to say, like, "Is this dude trying to replace me? Like, he's trying to learn my job?" But when you just say thank you and you're done with the conversation, you start to create that two-way street of communication where your people aren't afraid to give you feed forward. And you make it known, like, no one's getting fired over this. No, I'm open-minded. I'm looking to get better, and you're the expert that can help me do that. Game changer.
Yeah. Well, or you're going to give them more of a complex, especially if they're not used to it, because when you just look at them and say thank you, well, wait a minute, what?
Right.
What do you
Yeah.
mean thank you?
Yeah.
But no, I don't disagree with you. I just thought I'd, make a quick crack about that. But it is just actually, it's probably more important to receive the feedback than it is to give the feedback, because when it comes to making the team better, most leaders feel like they can just, and I've never understood this, they can just lead from the office, or they can lead from wherever all the other managers work, or if they're remote, they don't feel like they have to reach out regularly, they can just monitor the numbers. But
Mhm.
that's not the case. If you want to do a good job making sure that things are going the way they're supposed to on your team, you got to let your team know that you're involved. And one of the ways to do that is to ask them questions. And when you ask questions, what are you getting? You're getting feedback or feed forward. And that's not just for you, that's also for every other member of the team, because that's kind of how you identify uh, choke points in your operation.
Right.
And if you don't have an open communication type relationship with your employees, and you're just going off the numbers rarely tell the whole story. They only give a specific narrative, and that's why root cause analysis is important, is because that's the art of receiving feedback to get to the bottom of everything. Why, which is a horrible question, but that's what everybody always says. It's a why thing, but it's just drilling down to make sure that you're getting to the finest details, to make sure you understand what's going on, especially when things aren't going right.
That's right.
And if you don't know your people, if you don't have open communication with your people, and you're not receiving feedback on a regular basis, it's not just how you give them feedback. Having that is going to make the entire operation better, because it's going to help you understand how to get to the bottom of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things that, I've seen some people do really well, and I've seen others not do well at all, is subordinating their ego and having some humility when they're asking for some feed forward. I have no problem telling people that I'm not the smartest guy here. Like, hey, you know what? Can you help me understand this? And you might have to explain it like I'm in fifth grade. I'm not the smartest dude in the room here. In fact, you're the expert in this area because you're dealing with it all the time. So please explain it to me like I'm an idiot. Or sometimes saying, you know what, you know, I'm an idiot and I caught myself doing this. Can you give me one suggestion that can help me to avoid doing this? Your people will not think any less of you. In fact, it's the opposite. When you admit that you don't know, that you don't have all the answers, but you're looking for the answers, and that's why I'm coming to you to get them. When you admit that you're not the smartest person in the room, the people that you lead and you're saying that to are going to have more respect for you. They're going to feel valued because, like, hey, my boss is telling me that he doesn't know the things that I know, and he's coming to me for advice or feed forward. It builds relationships. And I don't care how smart you are. I don't care if you're a rocket scientist. When you say to someone, I'm not as smart as you, I don't know about this, people will automatically want to help you. And
Yeah.
it will not be a ding against you. They will not see you differently. In fact,
No.
well, sorry, they will see you differently, but in a better light. They won't think like this dude is a moron.
Well, that's where that intent over ego is important, because you
Yeah.
can't, if you make it all about yourself, they're going to sniff that out a mile away. But what I like most about what you said is that you are showing vulnerability. And when you show vulnerability to your team, and you're showing that your intent is to not just make, you know, your intentions the best intentions, that you're actually interested in having those conversations with everybody, you're right, it builds relationships. But what's even more amazing about that is that you're going out there and you're following up with them on a regular basis. And how do you elicit feedback without doing that? And by the way, I lost my train of thought, so that probably sounded really weird. But no, but there was another point to that, and I'll get to it. But feedback should always build. It should never break somebody down. And feeding forward, I'm gonna have to get used to that, because I like that, feeding forward. Because if you're not stuck in the now, if you're trying to move forward and build everything better, then they're gonna see that.
Mhm.
And the intent, they're going to sniff that out a mile away. But also making sure that you ask the right questions. You don't want to just always be in people's business all the time. You don't want to just be interrupting their work, because productivity is important as well. And
Yeah.
so when it comes time for feedback, you got to be very specific when you do that. I worked a short time at one of the uh, biggest hardware stores in the country. I'm not gonna say which one that is, because it doesn't matter. But I will say that when I was there, one of the most important things to all the employees there is making sure, in a retail environment, that they are getting the amount of time they're supposed to get in to each bay to do all the work, whether it's restocking, whether it's cleaning, it's all the merchandising stuff.
Mhm.
And that wasn't necessarily my department, but it was, I heard that from everybody. And when that log time is one of the things that's most important, if I was to go in there and just constantly bother them with questions, they're going to stop answering them, because they're going to get annoyed. That will probably make me sound incompetent.
Yeah.
Do it at
Oh, yeah.
times where they're already in a lull. Let them take a few extra minutes of break, and then have a conversation with them then. That doesn't mean you shouldn't walk around to each member of your team throughout the day and just ask them if there's anything you can help them with, or if everything's going okay. I mean, but make those things quick. There's a time and a place for feedback. And when productivity is important, people are going to be really, really upset with you if you're just interrupting the time that their numbers are being logged.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a balance, right? Balance to everything. And if you're just asking stupid questions just to ask questions, you're affecting someone else's job and their time. And you're right. They're not going to take you seriously, and they are going to think you're a moron.
Yep.
So be thoughtful in how you're how you're asking questions, when you're asking them, what they're about. So yeah, just everything is a balancing act.
Yeah. Let's go back to receiving feedback. Now, you said that one way you do it is by showing gratitude, saying thank you.
Mhm.
There's also a time and a place for that, I think. And, if there's a process improvement and you're just trying to take notes, that's probably one way to do that. But there's also kind of a time where you need to apply active listening and constructive feedback going back and forth. And so, we haven't touched on active listening in a while. And so I thought this might be a good opportunity to do that. Active listening is the idea that, well, just like mama always used to say, right? Yeah, you have 2 ears and one mouth for a reason. It's because you're supposed to listen more than you talk.
Right.
And when you're listening, it's not hearing, it's listening. And what I mean by that is you're actually, taking in what the other person is saying. Gosh, I don't know how many times I've been talking to my kids and I'll say something to them and then they go off in left field about something that's completely opposite, which they're teenagers. I get it. But that is the opposite of active listening. And then, using constructive feedback in that situation is basically nothing more than responding to what they say. If somebody looks at you and says, um, after work today, I'm gonna go and work on, I don't know, getting a new tool so that when I come to work tomorrow, it's gonna make my job more efficient. And then you say, yeah, we got to make new exercises for tomorrow's PT routine.
Right.
They're gonna be like, huh?
Yes.
And so that is the opposite of constructive feedback. If they're saying that they're trying to do something to make themselves better, you respond to that by saying, oh, what tool is that? Is that something that we should be applying to the entire team? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Then the constructive feedback has been given. I guarantee it's going to be received because he's like, oh my gosh, this Yahoo was actually listening to me.
Right.
And he responded to what I said, not with whatever he had going on in his mind. In addition to that, let's take it one step further and say, when somebody's talking, don't interrupt them. I don't give a doggone how important the thing that you have in your mind is to say. Let those people finish talking. And I mean, unless, of course, it's just an inopportune time. And you need to put your hand on their shoulder and say, hey, we got to follow up on this in a little bit because, as I told you guys this morning, we're on a strict deadline, but I want to hear what you have to say. But no, when people are talking, don't just interrupt them to blurt out whatever it is that's on the top of your mind. Let them finish talking. And I'm gonna leave it there for active listening and constructive feedback. I think that I beat that horse and probably turned it into hamburger, but I just wanted to make sure we went over that real quick.
Well, that's a really good piece of this whole, giving feedback or, giving feed forward, because when people, I'll often say, and I've had this with employees, I've had this with coaching clients, I'll say, it seems like you're listening to respond. You already know what you want to say. And as a result, you've tuned out what this person is saying. So you're listening to respond, not listening to understand. And when you're cutting people off, that's probably the biggest demonstration that you are not paying attention to them, that you just care about getting whatever's on your mind out. And then as a result, guess what? That person's not going to give a shit what you're saying either. Now you're both running in circles. And, it's funny, and this kind of applies here. So back in the day, I worked for someone who was getting some negative press, and it was targeted. It wasn't justified at all. And I said, "Hey, do you want to respond to this? Like this doesn't look good." And he said, "Here's the thing. when you wrestle with a pig, you both get muddy. And I'm not looking to get muddy. So that's what happens when you enter this continuous loop of, I'm just not listening because I want to respond and talk over you and share what I think. Now that person, they don't care what you think, 'cause you're getting into a vicious cycle, and now you're both getting muddy. So there's nothing productive that comes from it.
Speaking of getting muddy, there's a time where you have to give feedback to somebody for something that is improvement related. That's an important thing to do. And I
Mhm.
wanted to bring this up to kind of maybe go back and forth on this. But I know one thing that a lot of people do wrong is that they get really nervous or scared about that.
Yeah.
And so what happens? An hour goes by, a day goes by. Now you're into the next day and you're still going, ooh.
Yeah.
Well, what has happened with that person? Do they even remember what mistake? I mean, even if they knew they made that mistake, are they even going to remember it that next day or that next week? Well, what tends to happen with companies is that people will hold on to that moment until they're told by HR or some senior person that, oh my gosh, this guy's numbers have been horrible for a month. We need to let him go.
Right.
Well, if you never gave that immediate feedback within that, I mean, maybe an hour is too soon. I mean, you have to balance that based on your position and what's going on that day.
Mhm.
But definitely that day before they clock out and go home, have that tough conversation to say, I noticed this. The longer you let that go, and then you come back with oh, we're gonna have to fire you, or we're gonna have to give you some sort of a negative counseling or a write up or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
I mean, when you wait, it's gonna hit them off guard. I didn't know I did anything that I didn't know my numbers were that bad. I thought I was doing okay.
Yep.
And then you're gonna have some sort of a potential lawsuit or whatever on your hands because you as a leader decided you would get in your feelings and not give that feedback.
Yeah. It is something that I think people hesitate, and we covered this on the last
We
episode, right?
we did.
Difficult conversations. They are difficult for a lot of people. Most people do not like conflict, and they see it as conflict as opposed to seeing it as a way to make that person better. That's really where you how you need to approach these types of conversations, these feed forwards is, I see that Joe Snuffy isn't hitting his numbers. I want Joe Snuffy to not only hit his numbers, but to exceed them and be the best line guy that he can be. So it's all about the mindset before you have this conversation, right? It's
Yeah.
you've got to sometimes pump yourself up to say, man, these numbers are going down. How can I help Joe to get them back up? How can I help him to be the best that he can be? And then approach it that way. And it's like, hey, look, this isn't negative. I'm seeing this trend. Let's talk about it. What's happening that I don't see? Right? When you can even put some of the blame back on yourself. Hey, Joe, I'm looking at our daily, reports, and I've noticed Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, our numbers were down. What am I not seeing? Like, fill me in. You're on the front line. I'm not. Get the conversation going. That is a great way to kind of segue into, oh, okay. Have you tried tweaking here, doing this? You can almost like Jedi mind trick someone into feed forward just by being curious and asking the right questions with the intention of making that person better.
Well, and let's be honest, as much as you may work it up into your mind that that person is going to hate you for giving them that feedback, at the end of the day, they're going to want to get better because they know that, no matter what, a business relies on their numbers.
Mhm.
And I mean, if you don't make numbers, then you got to work on that because if you don't, I mean, that could be sales, that could be production, that could be whatever. And so you want to get those back up because I mean, if everybody just didn't make their numbers, the business wouldn't even be open.
Right.
So
Exactly.
they're going to want to get better, and they will, whether they say it or not. Just know that they appreciate you being upfront and honest as fast as possible, rather than just letting it get to the point where, well, now they don't have a job, because that's going to affect them. If they're married with kids, it could affect their family. I mean, the ball rolls downhill, the crap rolls downhill. And so, I mean, it affects more than just that moment. So do it for yourself, because you need to make your team better, but do it for that person because they deserve that feedback.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, we have hit the 30-minute mark. What do you have for closing remarks?
My closing remarks are: don't be afraid to ask for the people that you work with and that you lead to help you to get better through the process of feed forward, but also take the approach of helping someone to get better as a personal mission, not just a business decision. And people will understand that, and they'll accept more of what you're saying because of it.
And since you focused your comments on giving feedback, I will focus my comments on receiving feedback. What I meant to say earlier, and it just completely left my mind, was that the people on the front line know more about what's going on with production, with sales, with all the things better than you do, because they're the ones doing the legwork. Don't cheat yourself out of an opportunity to receive feedback, to find out what's going good, what's going bad, what's going right, what's going wrong, so that you can, I mean, it's going to help you learn the business better, but it's also going to help you learn your people better, find strengths and weaknesses. And honestly, it's going to make you grow as a manager, director, whatever, because as you increase your business acumen and you understand how to fix these things, then it's going to, I mean, that's why feedback is so important, is because that you're supposed to be growing yourself on a regular basis.
That's right.
So yeah, that was a good episode. Before we go, just like always, I want to put a plug in for this. This is my book, Speak Up, Show Up, Lead, a veteran story of grit, growth, and leadership from the ground up. It's my story. It's on Amazon. Just type in JJ Hardy into Amazon. It's going to pop up along with a couple other publications that I've put out there already. But this is my story and what I've learned in my life. It's not a woe is me. You know, my life has been so horrible. I've been through some crappy stuff. Okay. Well, that's weird. It got dark. I've been through some crappy stuff, and this is what I have learned that I'm helping people with now. So if you're interested, Speak Up, Show Up, Lead on Amazon. Look up JJ Hardy. You'll see it. It's the one with a guy in his uniform with dog tags hanging down. And that's all I got. Before we go, Chris and I, right after this call, we're going to put a survey probably on LinkedIn. That's where most of my following is. And we want feedback from all of you. We're going to put a poll up, and that poll is going to be asking you guys what type of series that we want to do. And we're going to put some suggestions out there. But if you don't like the topics that we put up there, don't feel bad about that. You know, there's a comment section for a reason. If there's something that you want us to say, because just like feedback that we just got done talking about today, we want to have a show that you guys and gals are interested in, not just what we want to talk about. We want to talk about what you want to hear. So please go to each of our profile. We're both going to have a separate survey, a poll, whatever you want to call it, and fill that out. Let us know what you think, and we'll work on that and bring the next series up in a couple of weeks on. That's July 5th. It's July 5th. It is. Okay. And that's all I got. You have anything else, Chris?
Nope.
All
That's
right.
I got.
Everybody have a great, wonderful, fantastic, and amazing weekend. And we'll see you next time.
Have a great weekend.